All right. Well, I guess back by popular demand because I was kind of presenting 2 weeks ago. Well, at least my name was on the slides 2 weeks ago. Also, I'm from Latitude Geographics, so I'm going to make it sound like I'm from somewhere else because usually you get a gift certificate at the end. Well, that's right there. So what I want to do today is actually this brown bag was inspired by Norm's brown bag when he talked about Australia, and I thought, wow, there's a lot of things that I could probably draw parallel between here and Quebec. So from Bob's suggestions, we're going to start with a little video.
I'm not unemployed or smuggling cigarettes across the border. I don't eat Pepsi in the West for breakfast. I don't watch the hockey game doing it doggy style. And no, I don't know Claude, Manon or François in Abitibi-Témiscamingue, but I'm sure they all have nice teeth. I smoke in church. I speak Quebecois and Joual, not French or English. I pronounce it third, not third. And eating French fries with cheese makes sense, Monesty. I believe in distinct society, as long as someone else pays for it. I believe in language police, not equal rights. And Carlis, I believe that Club Super Sex is an appropriate place for my wife and me to celebrate our anniversary. What the hell, she goes on at 10 anyway. In Quebec, the Stanley Cup actually comes around more often than Haley's Comet. I can get beer at the dépanneur, not at the convenience store. And maybe I can't turn right on a red light, but tabarnak, I can go right through it. Quebec is the world's largest producer of maple syrup, the home of Céline Dion and Rock Voisine, the land where everybody is shacking up, and the legal drinking age is just a suggestion. And I am not Canadian. Maudit tabarnak esti. Merci, salut la visite.
Everyone has some edge.
It's actually pretty funny because a lot of the stuff that, it's obviously tongue-in-cheek, but a lot of it is true. For drinking age, for example, I remember being able to get into bars way younger than I should have been allowed, so you'll not be asked for ID too often. Okay, so maybe I'll start by giving a bit of description about my background in Quebec. So I was born in Malartic, or Malartic, really. It's a really small town, population 5,000. At the time, I actually looked it up, and I think it's 3,500 right now. It was about 500 kilometers from Montreal. Let me see here, I've got some notes. So one of the things is I've actually lived in Quebec for 23 years, and I've actually lived in BC now for 17 years. So I left Quebec when I was 23. So the main industries from where I'm from is gold mining and forests. But my girlfriend will tell you, because she's not from this city, she's from a city close by, and she'll tell you that the claim to fame of Malartic is they actually have a mental institution. So she likes to bring it up whenever I say, oh, I'm from Val-d'Or, and she goes, no, you're from Malartic, where they have this mental institution. So actually as a kid I did, it's one of those kind of places where they just have people transitioning, after depression or something. So they're not really crazy patients, but she likes to bring it up. I did a bit of research about temperatures. So the coldest that it's ever been, at least since they've recorded it, was minus 43. But the wind chill was actually minus 55. And when you're a kid, they'll actually close the schools when it's minus 40. So they'll actually wait till minus 40 to close the schools. So it's very dry cold though. So it could be minus 15 in Montreal and be as cold. So minus 40 in a dry place is not as cold as. Also so you get the extremes. So in the winter it's really cold, but in the summer it's also really hot. So for example, 36 degrees was the recorded highest temperature, but with the humidex it's 47. So I wasn't there, thank God, but you can have some pretty hot summers. In fact, during the same day, usually you could go from it being 25 during the day to being 2 degrees at night. Like there's a big drop in temperature, which you don't get here.
And you say you were born in 62?
No, I was born in 72.
72? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, math.
Yeah, maths off a little bit, eh? So one of the things that's interesting about my city, I said that its claim to fame used to be that it was actually they had a mental institution, but actually now its claim to fame is since 2009, it's now the site of the largest open gold mine in Canada. So they started this project in 2009, and what they've done is they actually had to move 200 houses because the open mine, the open pit is actually right below where they had houses. So between 1935 and 1983, they actually extracted 5 million ounces from that area, but all through underground shafts, right? So the whole city is a mine underneath. But they stopped production at around 83 because they did all they could do at the time, you know, for extracting the gold, and probably the gold was lower at that time, so the production, it wasn't worth continuing extracting gold. But now with new techniques, they're able to extract gold a lot better. So they're actually saying that there's 8 million more ounces on that site, and they are actually processing. Right now they're about at 50,000 tons of muck a day that they'll actually process, and out of that will come about maybe 1,300 ounces of gold. But the amount they want to do eventually is 60,000 tons a day. So it's a huge amount of processing. In fact, they have the biggest crusher in North America to crush all that muck.
So getting close to 2 million a day?
Oh, no, actually I calculated it. So this is 2.5 million a day. So, of course, if you think about it, to move those, yeah, go ahead.
Do you get a cut?
You know, everybody said that when I was a kid, obviously there's a gold mine right underneath your house, right? And everybody's like, oh, you must be rich. It's like, well, unfortunately, no. But what's interesting is my dad wasn't a miner. But if you were one of the lucky ones where your dad was a miner, your summer jobs would often be working at the mine, right? And you'd be paid 15, 16 bucks an hour, like, you know, in the 80s and 90s. Like, it was awesome salaries for a student, you know. So I wasn't one of those fortunate ones. Now, talking about how much money they make, it cost them 130 millions to move those 200 houses. So what they did is they actually took all of them, moved them across town. They built all new places for them across town. They've actually demolished all the schools that were on that side as well. I'll actually show you. So these are some of the pictures. I'll skip this video. So this is... Yeah.
Those lucky kids working in the mine?
Okay, so if you were working... So actually Annie, my girlfriend, her dad was working at one of the mines, so she got to work there. So some of her work, sometimes you just work on the surface, and like, you know, you could be just, okay, now you're going to be just pushing that broom around doing this. But she actually said that she did some work where she had to go underneath, right? Of course, you're not actually operating those crazy machineries, but you might actually be doing, you know, student-type job underneath the ground, so it's pretty cool. You get paid more. If you're a student and it's a summer job, you'll get paid more if you go underneath. So I want to show you, that's a picture of before the mine happens. The mine now is actually taken all of this area here. So those two schools are gone. They've built new ones. And here you can't see 200 houses because there's a couple on each side. But I'll show you the next picture where you can see the mine out. All of this is now an open mine pit. So this is a picture of it now. So you can see the church is here, and that's the church there. So this line here, so they've put a big wall, right? So when you drive to the city, which is the main street here, you're just going along this big wall, and this is just massive. And they've actually constructed it. So in the last 2 years, I've gone to Quebec quite a bit for my mom, and I actually got to see some of that stuff happening as they were, you know, moving the houses and everything. I didn't see houses being moved, but I actually seen all of this. So for me, it's really weird because the city landscape has changed quite a lot.
Who owns the mine? It's a private company or is it?
So Cisco it's one of the Canadian, yeah.
Geologically speaking, is there some reason why there's gold
Yes.
like concentrated?
Yeah, so they have they call it the, you know, they have faults, right, for earthquakes and stuff. So there's a big fault called the Cadillac Fault, and it's the richest, like it started in Sudbury where they had the nickels and all of that stuff when they did, I was actually watching a documentary on that recently, and they start discovering like nickel, and like they have cobalt in Ontario where they discovered cobalt and stuff, and then eventually they started following it, and they realized that all of this area going into Quebec was all gold mines. So the whole region I'm from just started in 1908 or whatever, and they just actually it was richer than the Klondike right there in terms of what it has in the ground and everything. So that's one of the richest spots for gold in Canada. Let me see if here. Okay. All right, let's talk about speaking French in Canada. So I did a bit of research, and this shows the spread of where the French-speaking people are. So obviously, we've got most of it in Quebec. And if we look at Victoria here, we just have, maybe 0 to 9.9. So I'm assuming I'm obviously part of that. But you can see the spread here, more of like, a little bit in Alberta and stuff like that. And then you get obviously some in the Maritimes as well. So 35 million Canadians, 20 million speak English, 6.7 speak French, and 3.7 million speak other languages. That's from 2006. Oops, let me just go back here. So now speaking English in Quebec. So I looked at some charts. I wanted to see where the English speakers were actually in Quebec, because there's like Bob, you're from there. Who else was born in Quebec? You were born in Quebec. So we can see that most of the English speakers are located in Montreal, or the Montreal area. And then it's a little bit more here, which is right next to the U.S. border. And then you get some more closer to the Maritimes, right? But everybody else, so there's no English. I actually grew up around here. So you can see that nobody spoke English when I was a kid. Like there's just no English people around. And we can see it. So 7.4 million in Quebec, 6 million speak French, 0.8 English, and 0.5 other language.
Where's the other 0.1?
Montreal, right? I wanted to show you, this is actually the administrative region from Quebec. And my region is Abitibi-Témiscamingue, what the one he said in the video at the beginning. So you can see it's all blue, right? All of the regions, like when you're not in Montreal, that's where all the French is in the rest of Quebec, right?
And even in Montreal, there's a bit of
yeah, so you have this
parts of Montreal.
Yeah, you got the east side that's French, and the west side that's English. All right. So I thought we'd start with some, see if people can identify what some of these signs mean. Obviously, this we understand, but anybody knows what this one means up here?
Trees.
Yeah, it means, tree cutting. How about this one?
Attention. You can't see it.
It's a pretty wild sign.
Beware of children.
It says, take care of our children. They could be yours, right? So obviously they're kind of showing that you could probably hit someone when you're driving. You need that in Quebec, I think, because I don't think you need that here. People stop for people. How about this one?
Road closed.
Road closed. Obviously, this is fairly easy to understand.
3 kilometer moose.
And that's the end of a highway. Now, I brought up this one. Now, you can see this one is bilingual. When I was a kid, and that's probably before Bill 101, that's all the street signs were like that. So I remember growing up, we'd actually refer to a stop sign. We'd refer to it as arrêt stop. We'd literally say arrêt stop. So I'd be like, va jusqu'à l'arrêt stop. So when I showed that to my girlfriend when I was preparing for this presentation, she goes, oh yeah, I remember that. Now it comes back. Obviously, once they passed the law, they've changed all the signage to only be in French. But growing up, these signs were bilingual, so we'd always refer to those as arrêt stop. Which is funny because you got the accent and everything, and then you got the English word. Okay, so we're gonna play a little game here. So in Quebec, we use a lot of expressions that are actually coming from English words, and they're just spoken with a Quebec accent. And growing up, you don't even realize that they're English words that you're mispronouncing, and you'll see they're pretty mispronounced. So let's see if you can figure out what the English version of this is. So I'll say them so you can see how I would say them. Steering.
Steering wheel?
That's a steering wheel. So growing up, you wouldn't call it a volant, right, which is the proper term. We'd always refer to it as a steering. Mets ton flasher.
Turn on your lights, your flashers.
It actually means, put on your signal. So, in fact, I have a hard time even nowadays. I'm always tempted to say, use a flasher. But you guys don't necessarily use that, right? So, they might use it more in Ontario. Saxa dans sing. So the English word here obviously is sing. But really what we're saying is throw it in the sink. But growing up, you'd say sing, let's sing. Not knowing that the proper way would obviously be the sink. Dans le windshield. Yeah, so it means on the windshield. But we'd really literally call it le windshield. Du windshield washer. Le carport. The carport. Les wipers.
These all automotive.
We'd often use this. Obviously, you can understand what that would be. Je suis bad lucky, right? But that's how we'd say it, bad lucky. Like, it became this word, right? Not knowing it's necessarily from the English, right? Now, here's an interesting one. Chum, right? Which is used in English. But we use it to mean a boyfriend. So, you'll say to someone, ton chum, it really means your boyfriend. And ta blonde, which is the converse. This isn't from English, obviously, but that's how you call your girlfriend. Blonde, right? Which obviously means blonde. But it doesn't mean the blonde hair. It's like, ta blonde literally means your girlfriend. So in Quebec, ton chum, ta blonde are the terms for your boyfriend and girlfriend. C'est loose? No? It's loose. J'ai watché un show. Obviously, it's clear what it is, but we'll literally say that. J'ai watché le show. Plug le fil to, plug the cord, right? On est squeezé. Squish together. Prendre un break. Faire des toasts. So obviously they'll teach you in school that they're called hotsi, right? Like you making toast, it's hotsi. But no, in Quebec nobody uses that. You're making toast. Faire des toasts. Tu l'as botché, means you botched it. Okay, this one I wrote down because it's interesting. Mets un plaster.
Put on a Band-Aid.
Put a Band-Aid, but here people don't use it, right? It's really like I was watching a TV show, like I used to say plaster all the time. People wouldn't know what I'm talking about. Let's put a plaster on, whatever. They'd be like, what? And I was watching this British show the other day, and the guy goes, just put a plaster on it, and I'm like, what? I always thought it was in English, so obviously they just use it in English. Exactly, right? But I think we have a lot of those expressions that we use probably in Ontario and Quebec that are more closer to the England. Like I think the West Coast here, the English is slightly different. Let's talk a bit about Christmas in Quebec, Noël au Québec. So it's quite different in a lot of ways. Here, you're really doing the Christmas dinner on the 25th, right? That's when you'll have your Christmas dinner, that you'll open the presents on the 25th. In Quebec, everything happens on the 24th, right? So the first thing you do is you go to La Messe de Minuit, and you could possibly go at 8, obviously, if you've got kids, you don't want to go so late. But a lot of times, I remember as a kid, we'd go to the midnight one. So we'd come back, and there's on 2 a.m. And at that time, then it's opening presents, right? So it's past midnight, presents is fair game. So you'd open all your presents coming back from the midnight mass. So you'd sit through mass, you'd be like, oh, come on, I want to go home and see my presents, right? And after that, there'd be le réveillon, right? And that's where you have this huge meal on the 24th at night. So basically, you have a big party. It could be a cold or a warm buffet. And as people will eat, and like the kids have opened their presents, they're playing with it. The adults are just having fun. They're drinking. That often goes very late in the morning, right? So usually on the 25th, it's not really a dinner, and yeah, so this is Bûche de Noël. I love those, right? And Annie made me say that this one is one with cake in it. I personally like the one with ice cream in it. I like the ice cream Bûche de Noël. But the other thing is I wanted to just play this video where not only is, when you're in Quebec, all the songs, the Christmas songs, we all have them in French, right? And I'm going to just play one of my favorites. And this is an English song as well, but you'll get the French version of it.
Minuit chrétien, c'est le solennel où l'homme Dieu descendit jusqu'à nous.
So you can recognize the song, but then of course French lyrics. So obviously this one they sing, three quarters mess and whatever. So that's Christmas in Quebec. Who opens their present on the 24th? You do, right?
Yeah.
You guys do that as well? You get home, you're like, yes, let's do it. But I think it's not common. Let's see if we got something else here for this.
When does Santa come?
Santa comes actually, so you'll have the...
They're on mask, remember?
So right here, you open the presents, then you'll have one of the uncles, already probably a little drunk, start giving out presents.
Like down the chimney and their reindeer and all that?
Yeah. No, same story, but yeah. So at this time, actually, I wanted to mention a funny story about midnight mass. I remember when I was a kid one time, we had a big party that night, and before the mass, people are already drinking, right? And I remember going there, and then my dad was sitting close by, and at one point, the preacher's doing the sermon, and when he's done, my dad already a little, happy about Christmas, just starts like, just starts applauding. Nobody else, obviously, in church is applauding. I was like, no, I'm not sitting here. Actually, I want to go back for a second. I missed it on the other side. But when we're talking about French in Quebec, a lot of times people will say that, our French is just, it doesn't sound good. It's bad French or anything like that. But what it turns out is that the French we're speaking is actually what they call classic French. So it's the French from the 17th and 18th century from France. So what happened is when we came here, and then the English took over, immigration stopped, and then we became isolated. So the French as we speak is actually the French that they spoke at that time. So it didn't evolve. But reading about it, I also found something pretty interesting. Because in Canada, the main roads at that time were rivers and lakes, we use different terms in Quebec that they use in France. So obviously what you're going to do is you're going to say up into a car and come off a car. So in French it would be monter et descendre of a car. But because here they were using rivers and we use that, you would use embarquer et débarquer, which is embark and disembark from a car, which is really funny because that's part of our lingo, because the people in Quebec would use canoes and people in France didn't. So that's why when we speak in French, we'll say embarquer dans l'auto, débarquer de l'auto. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And yeah, so they're saying that our French is actually more unified than the one from France. Another fact that I thought was pretty good, let me see. So for example, we're saying moi instead of moi, and they actually used that at that time, and that expression eventually died in France, but it stayed here. So it's not like we converted French to use that. That's how they spoke at that time. And it's basically like Americans and British, right? Why do they sound different? Well, they're in different continents. It's the same with Portuguese from Brazil versus the one in Portugal, or even Spanish from. So all these languages sound different. So that's the same for French. Well, let's talk about some Quebec food. So I was trying to figure out, get a bunch of different foods. Most of the food that's distinct is usually Christmas food, but I thought we'd go through some of that. A lot of this obviously is we have everywhere, but a lot of this is really like typical of what we eat. So you guys know this? Tortilla. Now obviously this is a poutine, but this is a variation of poutine that I personally like. I'm not a big fan of poutine, but this one is a poutine italienne. So instead of gravy, it's actually spaghetti sauce. Really good. So if you guys make poutine at home, I'd recommend this. Anybody know?
I'm curious, does anybody know what a Michigan is? What? Do you know what a Michigan is?
No.
No? Oh, okay. That's also a variation, a hot dog with tomato sauce.
Oh yeah? It must be tasty. It's a bit like a chili dog then.
Yeah, a little bit like a chili.
So this dessert here, sarto sucre, fantastic. Who's had that here? Only you? This is amazing. Well, obviously, this is an amazing dessert. It's basically just sugar. But you take it's sugar and cream, right? And then you've got pastry around it. This is the most delicious. You get some vanilla ice cream with that. Can't go wrong. Now this is very typical Quebec dish. That in fact, they call this tourtière, right? But tourtière should really be this one, right? This should really be just pâté à la viande. And tourtière is this is the original name for tourtière. Tourtière is an actual bird that's extinct, So in the old days, they would actually use that bird as well as 6 other types of meats like pork and whatever to make this dish, which is actually called sipaut, right? And so it's a lot of meats with potatoes and all that, and it's very thick, crust around. So when you put it in the plate, like, it's really awesome. Like, you got nice crust flavor. And the name came from this dish, which had tourte in it, which obviously you had one of the meat was a bird. The reason I put a club here is because in Quebec, when you get a club sandwich, it's always with a nice chicken breast. Like, you never get the one here where you'll have like just pressed ham or something like that. Like, you're never getting a club that doesn't have nice. In fact, if you served a club that doesn't have a nice chicken breast in it in Quebec, people would be like, well, it's not what I ordered. And I only noticed it when I came here that a lot of times I'd be, oh, club sandwich, yeah, I'm not going to have one of those. And I'm like, oh, what is this? A nice, Montreal smoked meat. I was at the little, I don't know if it was with you, Jordan, but we went to eat at the little deli close by where they did have it. And they served it, and it had about this much meat on it. And I was like, and it was like $12. I'm like, you're joking me, right? Yeah. Like, this is the amount of meat you need in that sandwich. Now this year, anybody has done this before? Right, fondue chinoise. So we do that all the time in Quebec. So here, obviously, Annie and I like to do it. But we can't find the right meat, because the meat, of course, it's regular meat, but it's the way that it's sliced. It needs to be very, very thinly sliced, because you kind of roll it around the skewer and put it in. And here it's impossible to get. Like, I've explained it to butchers so often. I said, you freeze it, then you get it through the slicer the same slicer you use for your meat. They never get it right. So now I just do it myself. But in Quebec, you go to any grocery store at any moment, you'll always find meat that's been prepared for a fondue. You'll have chicken sliced this thin. You'll have pork. You'll have beef. Anywhere in Quebec, everybody eats that. So it's kind of it's not like you'd eat that on a Wednesday night, but it's often like you get people over, like it's a Saturday night meal, and it's a meal that lasts like 3 hours. So you take some, like, you're chatting, you're drinking wine, you're having all sorts of side. And usually, it doesn't show it here, but you usually have 4 or 5 different kinds of dipping sauce. So you'll cook your meat, and then once it's cooked, then you can choose, like, maybe it's a mustard-based one or something like that. It's just fantastic, because it's a nice time spent with family and friends. So fondue is very popular. This one is newer. Anybody knows what this one is? Raclette, right? Well, I'm up here, but raclette is the... actually, they didn't have that when I left Quebec in '95, and now it's the craze in the last 10 years or whatever. And but it's super awesome. So you could either do that or this one. So if you haven't seen it before, is the grill is hot, so you can cook the meat on top, but you put like vegetables and cheeses and stuff like that underneath, so it kind of cooks as well. So it's a bit like a fondue where it'll take time. You prepare your food, and it's kind of so it's a lot of fun. Here, that one's my favorite. I like obviously it's a chicken pot pie, but it's in Quebec it's a pâté au poulet. And in fact, this one, I couldn't find the right image, but usually you don't have like the carrots and stuff like that. It's more just the chicken and maybe, but it's really awesome. Christmas time food. Pâté chinois, right? So we don't call it shepherd's pie. It's really pâté chinois. And of course, the legend says it's because they did that in the railroad days, and there's the Chinese worker that would actually make the meal, so they started calling it that. But I looked it up today, and they have competing stories. Somebody says the name comes from a place in Maine called there's a town called China or something, and there's a lot of Quebecers there. This one, obviously, it's the split pea soup au pois, very popular in Quebec. So I thought we'd do a little more trivia. So what I've done is, growing up in Quebec, what they do is everything is dubbed. Germany, France, Quebec, a couple of other European countries, they dub everything. Never subtitled, always dubbed. So you have great voice actors that can dub every show. So growing up, I watched a bunch of shows that you guys watch, but only the ones that they actually dubbed in French. There's some people that sometimes say, oh, did you watch that show when you were a kid? And I was like, no, they didn't translate it. Because I didn't speak English at all until I was 15. So the shows I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you the French title, and you're going to try to guess what show it actually is. So what do you think this one is? Patrouille du Cosmos. It's Star Trek. So I'm just going to show you a snippet of Star Trek in French.
Elle n'a rien, elle pourra parler dans 2 minutes. Ce n'est pas de nous. Mais pas des morts. Je veux parler à l'homme qui vous commande. L'homme? Oui, le terreau de Spock. Parlez. Qu'en avez-vous fait?
N'est ni un mort, ni un mort.
Okay. How about Ma sorcière bien-aimée?
Oh, Bewitched, yes.
It's Bewitched. Code 2000? Any ideas? Knight Rider. But I'll show you the intro because it's quite. You gotta listen to the stuff they're saying. It's pretty funny.
Les exploits d'un chevalier solitaire dans un monde dangereux. Le chevalier et sa monture.
So he's actually saying it's a knight with his horse, right? Well, or saddle. So that was Knight Rider. Yeah. Les Joyeux Naufragés? No idea?
Part of what?
They even translated the theme songs, right?
Avant il y avait le matelot et le vieux capitaine. Elle battait à Guidian, pourquoi de rappel, pourquoi de rappel.
You must have seen some of those on French TV when you were a kid, did you?
Talk about steamy, all dressed. That's
Oh, yeah, well, like pizza, for example?
no, steamy, all dressed. Okay.
Might have been a Montreal thing. Les Drôles de Dames? No, because I wouldn't be watching that.
Il était une fois 3 filles superbes qui avaient décidé de s'engager dans la police. L'une à Los Angeles, une autre à San Francisco, et la troisième à Boston. Et on les avait cantonnées dans des travaux bien peu passionnants. Alors moi, Charlie, je les ai engagées et je ne le regrette pas, car ce sont vraiment de drôles de dames.
Of course, that dates me because these were shows when I was a kid, right? So, Sheriff, fais-moi peur.
Gunsmoke?
What's that?
Gunsmoke?
No. Any idea?
No.
No.
It's Opie, right?
Yeah, please so that I'll just.
Le blues c'est bien joli, d'accord, mais comme il faut aussi, tu conquis dans ta vie.
I really like how they spend the time to do like, all the theme songs in French and everything. It's pretty good. La Petite Maison à la Prairie. Little House on the Prairie. Les Pierres à Feu. Now that's a good one. We have to watch the intro for that. Pay attention to the accent as opposed to probably what you're used to when you've been watching it in English. Now this video doesn't have the French image, but when you're watching it, like this YouTube capture is probably not, but they've actually had a lot of these actually translated, like you'd actually see it properly, like they had the drawings from the French version. And they actually show you the voice actor who actually do them. And back then in Quebec, these were obviously, very funny comedians, so they picked a pretty good crew. Quatrième dimension. It's actually the Twilight Zone. Daniel Boone, anyone? Now you gotta listen to this. I listened to this when I was making this, and I couldn't believe how true Quebecer that song is. Like they literally, it is so joie, if you like. Now, this is a funny one. Obviously, you know what that is. But here's how I say it. I grew up saying l'incroyable Hulk. And whenever I say that, because to me it's Hulk, right? I've grown up saying that. Whenever I say that, my girlfriend goes, "No, it's Hulk." I'm like, "No, that's what I said as a kid. I would call it l'incroyable Hulk." La croisière s'amuse?
Who's company?
No. Actually, that would have been a good one. They didn't translate the song though, so it's the same. All right. See here, Quebec food. One of the things I talked about, the fact that in Quebec we translated everything. What that means is we actually grew up watching a lot of stuff, not knowing where it's from, but we saw a lot of German shows, a lot of Japanese stuff that was dubbed. So we really got exposed to a lot of different shows that, or even animes. Right? There's a lot of animes from Japan that they would translate for France. The benefit, Quebec's a small place in terms of the French-speaking population, but France isn't. So a lot of the stuff we got, it's really the French people who dubbed it, and then obviously because it was in French, then we got access to it, right? So we watched a lot of stuff that people here probably never heard of. So who's been to La Cabane à Sucre?
Yeah.
Few people? So as a kid, actually, my uncle had a cabane à sucre, so we went there once a year. And so I remember as a kid, like when we'd have to go around and you'd take those and you have to, put in the tree, so you'd use a hammer it in, and then you'd put the little canister underneath. And then every morning or in the afternoon, it depends what time or what temperature as well it was outside, because sometimes if it was warmer or something like that, it would definitely, the tree would, I'd say, leak more, right? So you'd have to make sure that you didn't want your tin cans to overflow. So you'd have to go, so you'd go around and then you'd pick all of these up and put in the main, like you'd probably do it with in the old days, probably with a horse drawn, but like we would go around with a skidoo and just pour it back into a main container. And then of course, when you come back, then they boil it all to eventually turn into maple syrup. And this they'll do here at Whistler sometimes and stuff like that. But if you've never had Tir sur la neige, it's pretty awesome. I'm not a big fan of maple syrup, but on the snow like that, it's super awesome because like you turn it around and then you got this kind of maple syrup lollipop, right? And usually there's a lot of food attached to cabane à sucre that are very specific to that. You'll have almost everything with syrup. But this one I put down, and I don't know if you guys have ever had that, but they call this oreille de Christ, right? So that means like, Christ's ears. And what's interesting is I was like, because what they do is, I'll tell you what part of an animal it is, but they'll make it, and it becomes like the way they prepare it, I think they deep fry it or whatever, it becomes like this very soft or crispy but like easily breakable piece of meat that you eat, and it's totally awesome. So it actually is deep fried smoked pork jowls, right? Like jowls, how do you pronounce that? Yeah, so that's what it is actually. So I don't know if you've ever had that, but you must have had that, right? Never? But you've heard of them, right? Oreille de Christ? Yeah.
I've never had it.
Yeah.
It kind of doesn't sound appetizing.
It's actually very tasty. If you don't know, in fact, I just found out researching what it was, part of the animal it was. I never knew. So, and I enjoyed it. I wanted to talk a bit about holidays in Quebec. So Saint Jean-Baptiste, you've all heard about, right? And so every year, this is the main holiday, right? So you celebrate this. We always have a big bonfire, so you always have to have a bonfire. There's usually a lot of artists playing, and they'll always have, independently which city you have, they'll always have people playing some music. And what I wanted to do is I thought maybe I'll show you some of this. We have a lot of folk music in Quebec. So I remember as a kid when we had those Christmas parties, like with the uncles would take out the violins and like the spoons, they'll start doing all that folk music. So I thought I'd show you this. Oops, let me go back here. Show you just a little excerpt from these guys. These guys are a modern Quebec band that have actually started doing some folk music, and this is during La Saint-Jean.
C'est la gargouille montée, la gargouille montée, les petits sont habillés.
Of course, as I was preparing this, Annie reminded me that she hates this style of music. But to me, it brings fond memory of when I was a kid, because those parties were always fun. You'd have the family dancing and all of these things. I wanted to show you this show that used to play in the 70s in Quebec. And they actually called it Soirée Canadienne, but really it's all about Quebec music. And
Tout le monde en fait connaître.
so this looks like the parties we used to have when I was a kid. Not necessarily dressed like that though. Now, as I was researching this, I actually found something else that I thought you guys might enjoy. It's a modern mashup. And it's amazing how it actually fits pretty well. Yeah. But how amazing is that? That totally just works pretty well. Now, obviously, this holiday, June 21st, is exactly 7 days before Canada Day, right? So in Quebec, you're always lucky because you get two holidays a week apart. So especially if it's on a Friday, you get 2 long weekends in a row. Now, the other thing I'll say is we usually party pretty hard on June 21st, 23rd. So when it comes time to Canada Day, you're just relaxing. So usually we don't party hard on Canada Day because we've partied on that. Also, one thing about July 1st, this is also where everybody moves in Quebec. Like here, you can move at any month or anything like that, but every time you rent a place in Quebec, whatever time it is of the year, because sometimes you do have to find a place that's not on July 1st, they'll actually make you sign a lease that will actually coincide that at the end of the lease it will be July 1st. So even if you're not on, like you're 3 months from July, they'll make your lease a year and 3 months so that it always ends on July 1st. The other thing about leasing a place in Quebec or renting a place, you need to give 3 months notice. So you have year leases because they usually don't go month to month because they always want you to finish on July 1st. So you need to know 3 months in advance before July 1st are you going to move. So it's insane. So I like it here in BC where it seems to be more protecting the renters, but in Quebec it's definitely designed to protect the rentees, whatever, the landlords. Well, I knew landlords, but I thought there was a word you could use with renter and rentee. No, anyway. Le landlord. Yes, it's more to protect the landlord. The other thing is also Thanksgiving in Quebec. If you're French speaking, we don't. It's just a holiday that you get a day off. We actually don't celebrate Thanksgiving or a big Thanksgiving dinner. This is really more of an English, Canadian, or American holiday. So I don't remember as a kid even having a special turkey or something like that. You know, so we don't really celebrate Thanksgiving. You must have celebrated Thanksgiving when you were in Quebec, right? Do you remember? So Thanksgiving in French is, yeah, because it's not big there, right? It's actually called Action de Grâce. That's Thanksgiving in Quebec. I thought we'd spend a little bit of time talking about swearing in Quebec. So let's go through it. Everybody's heard those words. I'm actually going to make sure you know them now. I've listed them all.
There's a pattern.
Absolutely. These are all based on church items in the church or things about the church. So this is a chalice. This is the tabernacle. This is the wafer. This is obviously just Christ. This is, I believe, the actual plate where they put the wafer in. This is just like a sacrament. This one, oh yeah, this one is, I believe this is isn't that the
Calvary, which is
where they
part of
put
the altar.
but it's not where they put like the cups and the chalice and all that when they're not using it. One of those two is anyway. So all of these are derived from that. But as a kid, you don't know it. You just know them as swear words. You don't even realize that they're actually church words. And here's the proper way to pronounce them. So get ready. Colis, tabarnak, esti. Well, here it's a no, but really when you pronounce it, esti. And you'd also shorten it. This is the favorite one. You can finish all your sentences with sti. Ça me fait chier, sti. Right? So you'll shorten it to just that.
Or you can combine this.
Yes, I'll show it here. So, ciboire, sacrament, calvaire. And of course, the way you want to use them is to combine them. And you'll notice that there's not actually any other word in there. So actually it doesn't equate to anything. But you would say it. So, esti de colis de tabarnak de Christ. Ou colis de ciboire de sacrament de sti. And technically you can mix and match. So let's give it a try. Yeah, just give it a go.
Ciboire Christ esti tabernac.
Perfect. There you go. I've also struck a couple of words here. Just to say that these are French from France. We actually don't use that. I know everybody thinks sacre bleu. We never say that. And putain de merde, very French. I put that down and then Annie said, I'll use it. And I'm like, that's fine, but I don't use it and we don't use it in Quebec. You probably just use it because you hear it in movies from France.
You would say sacré. Sacré, not sacré bleu, but just sacré.
With another word after, you mean?
No, just sacré.
Sacré? Well, that's, of course, that just means swearing, right? Sacré means just swearing, right? So I thought you guys have all seen Bon Cop, Bad Cop, or you haven't seen it? They have a pretty good scene in there where the movie, for people who haven't seen it, in fact, you should see it because this is the top grossing Canadian film of all time. So, and there you've got a French cop and you got an English cop. And the French guy kind of gives a swearing lesson to the English guy. So it's a really good video. We'll watch this one.
Because you're ignorant? Because you're a lunatic? Or just because you're French? You can't do this. Quoi la procédure dans ce temps-là? C'est ta juridiction. C'est assez.
Oh, la petite calice de pourrissal!
Surveille ton langage. Qu'est-ce que tu as dit? Qu'on est des pourrissals. Calice. Swearing. Hostie pourri, c'est pourri pas mal. Mais calice de pourri, ça commence à être vraiment pourri. Mais c'est pas si pire que ça, parce qu'il y a déjà quelqu'un qui va traiter de style pourri de calice de tabarnak. Over the car, pourri. Attends un peu que je sorte ici, tu vas trouver ça moins drôle. Il n'est pas fini. Tu peux le continuer.
Moi, t'en calisser une, là.
Ah, c'est beau, Luc. C'est un bel exemple, ça. Moi, t'en calisser une. Ah, tu peux le faire au masculin aussi. Ah, mais je vais t'en clisser un. Ah.
Toi, mon tabarnak.
Ah, merci. Tu vois, j'allais oublier ça, là. Tu peux l'utiliser comme un nom. Il a raison. Comme, je vais t'en donner un tabarnak. Un nom propre. Ah, c'est vrai, on a des expressions aussi. Comme je m'en calisse.
Ok, enough. Tu veux pas qu'il porte plainte?
Je m'en calisse. Voyons. Voyons, c'est qui se passe? Lulu.
Qu'est-ce?
D'abord, t'as bloqué le coffre, là.
Excusez.
Yeah, that's a really good movie. All right, let me see here. Okay. Now, I thought I'd list some Quebec differences. So we got just a little bit of time left. So, one of the things, and I've mentioned this before, is if you get married in Quebec, the woman cannot take the man's name. It's actually in the rules that you can. In fact, if you got married somewhere else, but you start living in Quebec, you'll have to get all your credit cards, driver's license for the woman. She'll have to get all of that with her maiden name. She actually cannot do it. I put a link here, but I won't show you because we don't have enough time. Also, I did some research. A lot of people, like, we usually don't get married as much in Quebec as somewhere else in Canada. It turns out that we're actually the common law world leaders. So we actually beat Sweden now as the place in the world that has the most common law couples versus married couples. And the numbers were like, I think we were like 38% common law versus the rest of Canada, which is about, I think, 12% or something like that. The other thing that's very different about Quebec is we have our own star system. So what that means is, I was reading an article on that. It's a really good article, and it's true. We have our own TV industry, we have our own gossip magazines, we have our own music industry, and all of that. And in a sense, it actually is closer to the American system. So they were saying, English Canadians tend to say, oh, we're not like the Americans. They like to say we're different from the Americans. And in a sense, it's kind of true. But in Quebec, although we are different, we look a lot more like them in terms of the way we have our own TV shows and things like that. And I was reading that out of the 30 shows that were at the top of the 30 shows in terms of rating in Quebec, 29 were actually Quebec shows. Well, I showed you all those shows that I watched as a kid. In the 80s, all the top 10 shows were all American shows that were translated in French, while nowadays, all the top shows in Quebec that people watch in terms of ratings, they're all actually from Quebec. So this is a new phenomenon from, say, the 90s to 2000, where we really have a lot of stars and a lot of people. We have our own industry. Also, huge ratings. There's this show I was watching recently that's so popular. It's kind of a bit like American Idol, but in Quebec. And we actually had shows that had 3 million people watching. Now remember, there's only 6.7 million people in Quebec. So you're saying it's almost like 1 out of 2 or 3 people were actually watching that show. That's how popular it is. Try to think of this in terms of Canada. I don't think there's even an English show, like an American show that plays in English Canada that can gather, that would be like gathering like 7 or 8 million viewers, which never happens.
Hockey Night in Canada.
What was that?
Hockey Night in Canada.
Right. I don't think it does, actually. You'd be surprised. I'm not sure that maybe the Stanley Cup playoffs might have a lot of people watching, but it isn't a produced show, right? It's just a sport, right? The other thing that was interesting is I remember when Titanic came out in '97, it was #1 all across America. They like to say the #1 movie across North America, and they couldn't, because that same weekend in Quebec we had this movie called Les Boys, which actually spawned in a few sequels, and we have a TV show about it now. And this was #1 in Quebec. So everywhere else in the world, or at least in North America, Titanic was #1. So apparently, this isn't exactly what the quote says, but I've heard at the time that James Cameron says, pardon my French here, but he says like, what the fuck is Les Boys, right? Like, he was so mad that apparently he said, I don't know what kind of movie can beat mine, but he apparently bought the rights to that movie so he can actually make it in English if he ever decided to. But he's like, I can't believe there's a movie that's beating Titanic anywhere in North America. Again, Back Up, top grossing film of all time, so I would suggest you actually watch it. Also, obviously driving in Quebec, very different. If we have if it's a highway and there's 2 lanes, don't stay on the fast lane at the same speed as the next guy, because you're going to get killed. We actually only use it for passing, which should be here. So it was quite a shock when I moved here. And I was like, come on, guy, why? No, didn't happen. The other thing, too, is we don't stop for pedestrians, so be really careful if you go to... So it was pretty shocking to me when I first arrived here, as I was used to... In Quebec, everybody does that. You're about to cross the street, you see the car coming, you totally plan your walking so that you'll actually be right after he passes. And the guy kind of knows you're not just going to jump in front of him, right? So I would do the same here. I'd be walking, I'd be like, I'm going to cross the street, see the car, and then next thing you know, it starts to slow down, and then stop. And I'm like, well, you're just throwing my rhythm off. Obviously, there was all the time to just... So in Quebec, that's it. People, you'll walk to the street and people are not going to be afraid you're going to jump in front, because we know they don't stop. So we're actually timing our walking according to people driving. So obviously I got used to that here. I tend to stay further away, and then, okay, now it does know I'm coming, I'm going to go. Moving day, we've talked about that. We don't have a lot of time left. There's 2 minutes. Any questions? No?
I just have one thing.
Yes.
Does this same meat you're talking about with the hot pot stuff, you can get it from Chinese restaurant? Sorry, Chinese.
No, of course, and we call it Chinese fondue, right? So if you go to like some places here around town, is it's really a boiling pot, right? And so it's the same thing.
Yeah, I also probably didn't want to tell you like prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll leave you on a quick final video here. This one, Dave's not here, right? This one was for Dave, really.
La danse des canards.
Of course, this is the chicken dance, but it's really, in Quebec, it's not chickens, it's ducks. And doesn't it make more sense than a chicken? Because that's what ducks do, right? They'll like shake their little wings at the back, right? The chickens don't do that.
Whatever happened to Renee Simard?
So that's his sister, yeah.
Remember that show on TV?
Well, he was a big star when he was a kid. René Simard was a big star in Japan and everything. You know, it was huge. So, well, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Christian. On behalf of Latitude Geographics, I'd like to present you with this.
I'm parched. That's perfect.
Thank you, Christian. We'll see you.